Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Since ancient times, many civilizations have risen and fallen, leaving only traces in history. But there is one particular people who carry an intriguing mystery: the Amalekites. Did you know that they were the first to attack the Israelites shortly after they left Egypt? Who were they? Where did they go? Do they still exist today? The Amalekites were direct descendants of Amalek, the grandson of Esau, and formed a tribe distinct from the other Edomites. Although they were relatives of the children of Jacob, their relationship with Israel was marked by brutal conflicts. But what happened to this people throughout history? The Bible mentions several battles against them, and many believe they were completely exterminated. But is that the whole truth? In today's video, we will dive into this enigma and explore the biblical, historical records and even some theories about the possible whereabouts of the descendants of Amalek. Did they really disappear, or are they still scattered across the Middle East today? Stay with me until the end, because what we are about to reveal might completely change your view of this enigmatic people. Who are the Amalekites today? The mystery of the disappearance of the people of Amalek. The name Amalek carries a mystery that spans millennia. In Hebrew, it is pronounced as Amalek, and in the texts of the Hebrew and Aramaic Bible, it is described as the enemy nation of the Israelites. But what does this name really mean, and what is its true origin? Most scholars agree that the etymology of Amalek remains unknown. However, there are intriguing theories suggesting that this name might not just be a proper name, but a title, a designation that could carry a deeper meaning than we imagine. In ancient rabbinic interpretations, some explanations attempt to decipher this enigma. According to one such interpretation, Amalek could be formed by two Hebrew words: Am, meaning people, nation, or even relative, and Lak, which could be related to the term Lashon, language. This interpretation led some rabbis to suggest that Amalek could mean something like a people who lick, and in some rabbinic traditions, this idea was expanded to a people who lick blood, reinforcing the image of the Amalekites as relentless enemies of Israel. However, there is an important detail. The Hebrew word for blood, dam, does not appear in the name Amalek. This means that this interpretation may have been a later rabbinic construction based on the cruel reputation of this people in the biblical accounts. The renowned linguist and specialist in Semitic languages, Richard C. Steiner, proposed an intriguing theory about the origin of the name Amalek. According to him, the term derives from the Egyptian expression MRQJ, which can be translated as hostile Asian, brutal Asian, or, in a freer interpretation, brutal Shasu, with the Shasu being a group of ancient Semitic nomads. In other words, Amalek could have been identified as a fierce Semite, marked by brutality or warrior resistance. In ancient Aramaic, the name Amalek carries a meaning distinct from Hebrew. Here it embodies the idea of the people who carried away, or the people who took, suggesting a nation or tribe associated with conquest, plunder, or forced displacement. According to the texts of the Hebrew Bible and the Aramaic Bible, Amalek was the son of Eliphaz, who in turn was a direct descendant of Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites or Idumeans, and the brother of Jacob, Israel. Amalek's mother, a concubine named Timnah, has an equally interesting origin. Timnah was a woman of Hurrian descent, a mysterious people who inhabited the Mesopotamian region and had strong ties with Indo-European cultures. The presence of the Hurrians in Amalek's lineage raises several questions about the ethnic composition and cultural influences of the ancient Near Eastern peoples. Was Amalek a warrior of mixed blood, combining the traditions of the Semitic and Indo-European peoples? Did he inherit not only a fierce identity, but also the resistance and military culture of these ancient peoples? One curious detail, often overlooked in the history of Amalek, is the possible reason why his mother, Timnah, chose this name for her son. In Aramaic, Amalek means the people who took, or the people who carried away. But which people would that be? The answer might lie in Timnah's own origins and the history of her people. Timnah was of Hurrian descent, a group that inhabited strategic regions of the Near East and over time saw its lands taken by Semitic peoples. Her son, Amalek, was born from her union with Eliphaz, the son of Esau. Eliphaz, in turn, became a leader of the Edomites, a Semitic people who conquered territories once belonging to the Hurrians. Thus, the name Amalek may reflect a historical fact. He was a direct descendant of a lineage marked by both invasion and resistance. The historian Flavius Josephus refers to Amalek in a derogatory manner, calling him a bastard, which may indicate his status as the son of a concubine, a position that could place him on the margins of Edomite nobility. However, despite this, Genesis 36:16 describes him as a tribal chief, suggesting that he ruled over a clan or territory that later came to bear his name. In the enigmatic Oracle of Balaam, found in the Book of Numbers, Amalek receives a mysterious title, the First of the Nations. This detail has sparked diverse interpretations over the centuries. Some modern scholars believe this affirms the great antiquity of the Amalekite people, while the famous commentator Rashi suggests a more martial meaning. He came before them all to wage war against Israel. The Amalekites, traditionally recognized as descendants of Amalek through the line of Esau, inhabited strategic regions, including the Negev and the Sinai Desert in the southern Levant. Their constant raids and skirmishes made them a nomadic or semi-nomadic tribe, moving across the arid lands and steppes of ancient Israel near the region of Kadesh. This territorial association can be seen in the account of Genesis 14:7, which mentions the presence of the Amalekites in the region even before their apparent genealogical foundation. This suggests that, whether through assimilation or conquest, the Amalekite people may have existed independently even before the historical figure of Amalek. However, there is another possible explanation for this apparent inconsistency. Many scholars suggest that the author of Genesis, traditionally attributed to Moses, used geographic and cultural terminology from his own time to describe ancient events. This would mean that, when writing Genesis 14:7, Moses simply used the name Amalekites to refer to a people who lived in that region in the past, without necessarily indicating that this group was the same one that would later become Israel's enemy. If this interpretation is correct, the Amalekites mentioned in Genesis may not be the same ones from Moses' time, but rather a group that inhabited the lands where the biblical Amalekites would later settle. Regardless of their origin, the Amalekites appear repeatedly in the Old Testament as relentless adversaries of Israel. Their first direct confrontation with the Israelites occurs in Exodus 17:8-16, shortly after the Exodus from Egypt. The most significant event of this confrontation was the Battle of Rephidim. The Amalekites attacked the unsuspecting Israelites, forcing Moses to organize a defense. During the battle, an interesting event unfolded. Aaron and Hur helped Moses keep his hands raised while he prayed. Whenever Moses raised his hands, the Israelites gained the advantage. When he grew tired and lowered his arms, the Amalekites began to prevail. This episode gave rise to one of the most iconic images in the biblical narrative, Moses' prayer as a determining factor in the battle, symbolizing Israel's dependence on divine help. In the end, the Amalekites were defeated, but their enmity with Israel persisted for generations. The Amalekites are a constant presence in the texts of the Old Testament, repeatedly appearing as enemies of Israel. They are mentioned in several books, including Numbers, where they are described by the enigmatic prophet Balaam, as well as in Judges, Samuel, Chronicles, and Psalms, Psalm 83, verse 7. Despite suffering successive defeats at the hands of the Israelites, the Amalekites seem to never be completely eradicated. Whenever Israel subdued them, a remnant would emerge again to continue the fight. The last mention of the Amalekites in the Holy Scriptures occurs in the Book of Esther, set during the period of the Persian Empire. In this story, the figure of Haman, a high Persian official, attempts to exterminate the Jewish people in a plan that echoes the ancient conflicts between Israel and Amalek. Many scholars believe that Haman was a descendant of the Amalekites, which would mean that this tribe, once nomadic and warrior-like, survived throughout the centuries, spreading and blending with other cultures. If this hypothesis is correct, we can speculate that the Amalekites, in their last known historical phase, began to inhabit the region of Persia, in addition to their traditional territories in the Negev and Sinai. In addition to biblical accounts, archaeology suggests that the Amalekites may have left physical traces in the Negev desert, a region that historically housed semi-nomadic tribes. Among the main evidence are the fortified settlements found in the highlands of the Negev and in Tel Massos near Beersheba. Some experts believe that Tel Massos could be equivalent to Horma, a city mentioned in the conflicts between Israel and the Amalekites. If this connection is true, King Saul's military campaigns against the Amalekites may have had a strategic motivation: the control of copper production at Tel Massos. Copper was an essential metal for the production of weapons and tools, making the Amalekites a key player in the territorial and economic disputes of the time. Other archaeological findings, such as the fortresses of Tel el-Kudirat and Horvat Halukim in the Negev, dated between the 11th and 10th centuries BC, may reinforce the biblical accounts of the conflicts between Saul, David, and the Amalekites. The Amalekites, whether as a nomadic people, a warrior clan, or a persistent lineage in history, appear to have been recurring enemies of Israel for centuries. But were they really annihilated or simply absorbed by other peoples, disappearing from the scriptures but not from history? One of the most intriguing questions about the Amalekites is, what happened to them? Where did the descendants of Esau go? Over the years, many have raised this question, and the most likely answer is that they still exist in the Middle East, though highly mixed with other Semitic tribes. But how did this happen? How did a people so frequently mentioned in the scriptures, who fought countless battles against Israel and challenged great kings like Saul and David, simply disappear? The truth is that over the centuries, many of the Semitic peoples of antiquity, such as the Edomites, Midianites, Ammonites, Moabites, and even the Amalekites themselves, ended up intermingling with one another and with other populations in the region. This fusion is a common phenomenon throughout human history, especially in regions of great trade and conflict exchange, such as the Middle East. The Edomites, for example, have their whereabouts well documented until the Persian period. After that time, however, they simply disappear from historical records. No direct mention of the Edomites is found in later sources, and the same can be said about the Amalekites. But this does not mean that they were extinct. Rather, they were assimilated into other cultures. If we consider the territories these peoples inhabited in antiquity, it is highly probable that the current populations of these regions have some genetic trace of the Edomites and Amalekites. But which modern countries would these be? Jordan. The land of the ancient Edomites overlaps with modern-day Jordan, especially the region of Petra, which was once the capital of the Edomites before being absorbed by the Nabateans, Israel and Palestine. Some Arab populations in these regions may have Edomite, Midianite, or Amalekite ancestors, considering that the Semitic peoples of antiquity frequently interacted and intermingled. Saudi Arabia. Some northern Bedouin tribes may have Edomite ancestors, as the Edomites migrated south over time. Syria and Iraq. With constant migrations and wars, it is possible that Amalekite and Edomite tribes spread into these regions. However, without conclusive genetic studies, any claim of direct descent remains speculative. What we can say with certainty is that historically there was no total disappearance of the Amalekites and Edomites, but rather a gradual absorption into the societies of the Middle East. We know that the Edomites are still present in the Middle East today, especially among populations like the Jordanians, Palestinians, and even some communities in Saudi Arabia. However, it is important to note that regarding the Edomites and the Amalekites, we can affirm that a significant portion of Edomite and Amalekite DNA remains in certain regions, such as in Jordan, specifically in the area of the Seir Mountains. The Bedouins of this region, for example, may have some level of ancient Edomite ancestry in their DNA. Although in modern times, it is impossible to identify a tribe or people who specifically call themselves Amalekites, the Edomite and Amalekite heritage persists in the DNA of various populations in the Middle East, especially among the Palestinians. Many Palestinians, for example, carry genetic traits indicating Edomite and possibly Amalekite ancestry. It is worth remembering that the Amalekites were a tribe of the Edomites. Though distinct, they were still part of this ethnic group. Historical records show that the Edomites were present until the 1st century in the time of Jesus Christ, but after that period, they disappear from historical sources. However, we believe that many Edomites converted to Judaism and began living among the Jews, with some Jews marrying Edomites. Thus, it is quite likely that many Jews today have Edomite and even Amalekite origins in their DNA. If you are interested in further studies on these populations, which are not often covered on YouTube, leave your comment. If you enjoy our content, consider becoming a member of our club. For a symbolic amount, you will help us continue producing videos and studies on the scriptures. Additionally, you will have early access to videos and a special place on the channel's page and in the comments. With that, we bid you farewell, wishing that God blesses you, and we hope to see you soon.